Welcome back. Today's question sounds simple at first, but the more you think about it, the stranger it becomes. What would really happen if time suddenly stopped? Just for one day, not slowed down, not glitched, completely stopped. Before we imagine frozen cities or paused moments, we need to ask a more basic question: what does time stopping actually mean? In everyday life, we treat time like a clock on the wall or a countdown on our phones. Seconds pass, minutes stack up, and life moves forward. But in science, time is not just a measurement, it is a fundamental part of how the universe works. Time is deeply connected to motion, energy, and change. Without time, nothing can move, react, or transform. So when we say time stops, are we talking about clocks freezing, or are we talking about something much deeper, every physical process in the universe coming to a halt? If time truly stopped at the most fundamental level, atoms would not vibrate, light would not travel, and cause and effect would disappear entirely. In that scenario, nothing could even experience the pause. From the inside, it would feel like no time passed at all. But what if time stopped for everything except human awareness? That would mean the universe is frozen, yet our minds are still active. This version of stopped time raises even stranger questions. Could we move if motion itself depends on time? Could we see if light is no longer traveling? Could a single thought even form if brain activity requires change? This is why the idea of stopping time is not as simple as pressing a pause button on reality. Depending on how we define it, a frozen moment could be completely unnoticeable or utterly overwhelming. Before exploring consequences, disasters, or miracles, we first have to understand this. Stopping time does not just stop events. It challenges the very structure of reality itself. And once we understand that, the real questions begin. Now that we have a clearer idea of what stopping time might mean, the next question feels unavoidable. If time stopped for 24 hours, would humans still be conscious or even alive at all? At first glance, it is tempting to imagine people freely walking through frozen cities, observing paused moments like statues in a museum. But human life depends entirely on processes that unfold over time. Breathing, thinking, seeing, and even maintaining body temperature all rely on constant motion at the cellular level. If time truly stopped everywhere, those processes would stop too. In a complete time freeze, oxygen would no longer move into the lungs, blood would no longer circulate, and neurons would no longer send signals. The brain, which relies on rapid electrical and chemical changes, would fall silent. In that scenario, humans would not experience the pause at all. From their perspective, the moment before the freeze would instantly jump to the moment time restarted. The 24 hours would pass without awareness, memory, or sensation. But there is another version of this scenario, one where human consciousness is somehow exempt from the freeze. This raises far stranger possibilities. If the mind remains active while time is frozen, the body becomes a problem. Muscles can't move without chemical reactions. Eyes can't see without light reaching them. Even forming a thought requires change, and change requires time. Consciousness without time may not function the way we imagine it does. There is also the question of aging. If time is frozen externally but human biology continues internally, would people age during those 24 hours? Would hunger, exhaustion, or stress accumulate, or would the body be suspended, untouched by the passage of time? This idea reveals something unsettling. Human awareness is not separate from time, it is built into it. Our sense of self, memory, and presence all depend on moments flowing forward. If time were removed, even briefly, consciousness might not survive in any recognizable form. And that realization forces us to rethink a common fantasy. A frozen world may look peaceful from the outside, but from the inside, there may be no you left to witness it at all. If humans somehow existed during a pause in time, the next mystery would be motion itself. Everything we see, moving cars on highways, planes in the sky, waves in the ocean, depends on time flowing forward. Motion is not just movement through space. It is movement through time. Without time, motion has nowhere to go. Imagine a car traveling at full speed at the exact moment time stops. In a true time freeze, that car would not slow down or crash, it would simply remain suspended in its position, forever mid-motion. The same would apply to airplanes, falling objects, and even sound waves traveling through the air. Energy, which relies on change and transfer, would also be frozen in place. Gravity raises an especially strange question. Gravity appears constant, but its effects, objects falling, planets orbiting, are processes that unfold over time. If time stops, gravity may still exist as a force, but it could no longer do anything. A dropped object would hang motionless in the air, not because gravity disappeared, but because there is no time for gravity to act. Now consider what happens when time restarts. All that frozen motion resumes at once. Cars continue driving, planes keep flying, and objects continue falling from wherever they were paused. This sudden return could create instant confusion, not because something new happened, but because everything that was interrupted tries to finish what it started. Energy stored in motion would release again without warning. A swinging door completes its arc. A falling glass resumes its drop. Even tiny movements, paused mid-action, return as if nothing had happened. This idea reveals something subtle but powerful. The universe is not a collection of static objects, it is a continuous process. Motion, energy, and gravity do not just exist. They are always in the act of becoming. Remove time, and the universe does not slowly wind down. It simply stops being a process at all. And once time begins again, the universe remembers exactly where it left off. When we think about time stopping, it is easy to focus only on what happens around us on the ground. But Earth is part of a much larger system, constantly moving through space. Our planet rotates, orbits the sun, and interacts with countless objects beyond our atmosphere, all of which depend on time continuing to flow. If time truly stopped everywhere, Earth's rotation would pause instantly. There would be no sunrise or sunset during those 24 hours. No shifting shadows, no gradual change in the sky. The planet would be locked in a single position, as if the entire solar system had been frozen in a single frame. Satellites orbiting Earth would also be suspended in place. Weather systems would stop developing. Winds would freeze mid-motion, clouds would hold their shape, and oceans would remain perfectly still. From space, Earth would appear calm and unchanging, not because it is stable, but because every process that creates change has been paused. The sun itself would be frozen as well. Nuclear reactions at its core, which release energy continuously, would halt. No light or heat would be newly produced during the freeze. If time stops completely, even light already traveling through space would stop where it is. That means Earth would not suddenly go dark, it would simply remain lit exactly as it was at the moment time stopped. When time resumes, everything continues as if nothing happened. Earth completes its rotation. Satellites continue their orbits. Sunlight resumes its journey. From a cosmic perspective, the pause would leave no visible mark, no evidence written into the motion of planets or stars. This idea highlights something important. The universe does not react emotionally or dramatically to impossible events. It simply follows its rules. If time stops, the universe waits. If time starts again, it continues. To the cosmos, a frozen day means nothing. To the minds living on one small planet within it, that same day could change everything. Modern civilization runs on systems that never truly rest. Electricity flows constantly, data moves across networks, and machines respond in real time. All of this depends on time moving forward. So if time stopped for 24 hours, technology would not fail in the usual sense, it would simply pause. Power plants would freeze mid-operation. Electricity would stop moving through wires, not because of damage, but because motion itself requires time. Computers would halt between calculations, screens frozen on a single frame. Digital clocks would stop counting, and automated systems would remain locked in whatever state they were in at that exact moment. Hospitals, transportation systems, and communication networks would be affected the same way. Trains would pause on tracks, elevators would stop between floors, and aircraft systems would remain suspended mid-process. Nothing would crash or shut down during the freeze, because crashing also requires time to pass. The real challenge would come when time restarted. All systems would resume at once, without awareness that anything unusual had happened. Machines would continue their tasks exactly where they left off. A software process paused mid-action would finish it. A train would continue moving. A signal would finally reach its destination. This sudden, simultaneous restart could cause confusion rather than immediate destruction. Systems designed to operate continuously might struggle to resynchronize. Small delays, mismatched signals, or interrupted sequences could create unexpected outcomes across global networks. What this reveals is how fragile complexity can be. Technology feels powerful because it works smoothly over time. But remove time, even briefly, and that smooth operation is exposed as a delicate balance of countless processes working in sequence. A frozen world would not break our machines. It would remind us that technology, like civilization itself, only exists as long as time allows it to keep moving forward. While machines can pause without harm, living systems are far less forgiving. Life is not a fixed structure, it is a continuous process. Every heartbeat, every breath, and every thought depends on countless reactions happening in the right order over time. If time stopped completely, biological activity would stop with it. Cells would no longer exchange materials. Chemical reactions that sustain life would freeze in place. From the outside, living bodies would appear perfectly preserved, neither alive nor lifeless, simply suspended. In that scenario, there would be no suffering, no awareness, and no damage during the pause. Life would not decay, but it would not function either. When time resumed, those processes would continue as if no interruption occurred. To biology itself, the 24 hours would effectively never have existed. But if time stopped everywhere except inside living organisms, the outcome would be very different. Without fresh oxygen moving through the air or nutrients circulating through the body, biological systems would quickly struggle. Heat could not escape, waste could not be removed, and balance would be lost. Even a short period without external time could become dangerous. This contrast highlights an important truth: life is not just matter, it is motion. What makes something alive is not what it is made of, but what it is constantly doing. Stop that activity, and life becomes a paused pattern rather than a living process. It also raises an unsettling question. If a person experiences no passage of time, are they truly alive during that pause, or is life defined by the moments we can remember, the changes we can feel, and the experiences we can carry forward? A frozen day might leave bodies unchanged, but it would strip life down to its most fragile requirement, the need for time itself. The most dramatic moment would not be when time stops, but when it starts again. After 24 hours of absolute stillness, the entire world would resume motion at the exact same instant, as if reality had been unpaused. From a physical perspective, everything would simply continue what it was already doing. A person mid-step would finish that step. A glass falling from a table would continue toward the floor. Vehicles would resume their movement, and machines would pick up unfinished processes. To the universe, nothing unusual occurred. There was no gap, just a continuation. But to human society, the restart could feel deeply unsettling. People would have no memory of the pause itself, only the sudden realization that something is wrong. Clocks would show a missing day. Recorded data might skip forward. Scheduled events would feel out of sync. For many, the confusion would begin with a simple question: where did the last 24 hours go? In some places, the timing could matter. Transportation systems resuming all at once might create moments of confusion. Ongoing operations would suddenly reappear in motion. Not because they were damaged, but because they never had the chance to adjust to the pause. Emotionally, the restart could be even more intense. A missing day challenges our sense of continuity. Humans rely on memory and sequence to understand reality. When a full day disappears without explanation, trust in normal cause and effect begins to weaken. Rumors would spread quickly. Some would search for scientific explanations. Others might turn to philosophical or symbolic interpretations. The event itself may leave no physical scars, but it would leave a deep mark on how people perceive stability. The chaos, then, would not come from destruction but from uncertainty. A world that loses a day without warning is forced to confront a frightening idea: reality can pause, resume, and never explain itself. And once that idea takes hold, it is very hard to forget. Even if the world appeared physically unchanged after time resumed, the human mind would not move on so easily. A missing day would create a quiet but lasting psychological shock. People would question their memories, their routines, and their sense of control over reality. For many, the first reaction would be disbelief. A full 24 hours gone, with no shared memory of experiencing it, would feel like a gap in existence itself. Unlike sleep, unconsciousness, or distraction, this absence would have no internal explanation. There would be no dreams, no sensations, no passage of thought, just nothing. This kind of event challenges how the brain understands continuity. Human identity is built on remembered moments linked together in sequence. Remove an entire day, and that sequence breaks. Some people might feel unsettled or anxious, sensing that reality is less stable than they once believed. Others might respond in the opposite way. The idea that time can stop and restart without harm could bring comfort, suggesting that even extreme disruptions do not necessarily lead to collapse. A frozen day might feel less like a threat and more like a reminder of how little control we truly have. Over time, people would look for meaning. Psychologists know that when faced with unexplained events, humans naturally create narratives. Some might treat the missing day as a scientific mystery. Others might see it as symbolic, philosophical, or even deeply personal. The most lasting effect may be subtle. After such an event, moments could feel more fragile. Ordinary days might feel more valuable. When people realize that time itself is not guaranteed to flow smoothly, each passing hour gains weight. The pause would not leave visible damage, but it would quietly reshape how humanity feels about time, memory, and the trust we place in the everyday flow of life. Once the initial shock faded, deeper questions would begin to surface, not about physics, but about society. A missing day would force governments, institutions, and communities to confront something they had never planned for, an event that affected everyone equally, yet left no direct evidence behind. Politically, there would be pressure to explain the unexplainable. Leaders would be expected to respond, even if they had no answers. Investigations would be launched, data analyzed, and experts consulted, but without witnesses or physical damage, every explanation would feel incomplete. This could strain public trust, especially in systems built on predictability and control. Socially, the event might briefly unite people. A shared mystery can create a sense of collective experience. Everyone lost the same day. No one was spared, and no one was singled out. For a moment, that equality could soften divisions and encourage reflection. Morally, the implications would be unsettling. If time can stop without warning, what does that say about responsibility, schedules, deadlines, or long-term plans? A world that can simply pause challenges the idea that progress is guaranteed. It forces people to reconsider what truly matters when the future is not as stable as it seems. Legal systems might even face strange questions. Did contracts advance by a day? Did age change? Did obligations shift? A single missing day could ripple through rules that assume time always moves forward in a straight line. In the end, society would adapt, as it always does. But beneath the surface, the pause would plant a quiet doubt, one that lingers long after laws are adjusted and routines restored. Time, once trusted, would no longer feel entirely dependable. After explanations fade and routines slowly return, one final question would remain: would humanity truly go back to normal? On the surface, life might appear unchanged. Cities would function, calendars would adjust, and people would continue planning for the future. But something subtle would be different. A world that has lost a full day without anyone experiencing it would never fully trust time the same way again. Time would no longer feel like an unbreakable constant. It would feel conditional, something that usually flows, but not something that is guaranteed. That quiet realization could reshape how people think about their lives. For some, the missing day would make time feel more precious. Ordinary moments, meals, conversations, sunsets might carry more weight, simply because they are happening at all. When people realize that an entire day can vanish without warning, the present moment becomes harder to take for granted. For others, the effect could be more unsettling. Long-term plans might feel fragile. If time itself can pause once, could it happen again? This uncertainty could influence how people approach careers, relationships, and goals, shifting focus from distant futures to more immediate meaning. Culturally, the frozen day would likely become a reference point. Books, documentaries, and debates would revisit it for generations. Not because of what happened during the pause, but because of what it revealed. The event would stand as proof that reality does not always behave in ways humans expect or control. In the end, humanity would survive the pause. There would be no ruins, no scars on the planet, no visible sign that time ever stopped. And yet, the change would be internal. Once people understand that time itself can step away and return without explanation, the illusion of certainty is broken. Life would go on, but with a deeper awareness that every flowing second is less guaranteed than it feels. As we reach the end of this thought experiment, one thing becomes clear. The idea of time stopping for 24 hours is not just a strange scientific puzzle, it is a mirror held up to how we live our lives. Time feels constant, reliable, and always moving forward, yet this question reminds us that everything we depend on exists only because moments continue to flow. If time were to pause, even briefly, the universe would not panic. Planets would wait, systems would resume, and reality would carry on exactly where it left off. But for humanity, the impact would be deeper and quieter. A missing day would challenge memory, identity, and the sense of control we believe we have over our lives. What makes this question so powerful is not the freeze itself, but what it reveals. Life is not defined by objects or places, it is defined by change. Thoughts, relationships, and meaning only exist because time allows them to unfold. Remove time, and even for a moment, and everything we take for granted becomes fragile. Perhaps that is the real lesson hidden inside this strange question, not that time might stop, but that it usually does not. And because it keeps moving, every ordinary moment carries value, even when it feels repetitive or unnoticed. Thank you for spending this time with me and exploring one of the strangest questions we can ask about reality. If this made you pause and think, feel free to share your thoughts. Until next time, take care and do not forget to appreciate the moments that are still moving forward.